CBS News political contributor Jamelle Bouie and Erin McPike, a former political reporter and current communications director for 1776, join us to break this down. Jamelle, to you first. Many Republican leaders have said they will not support Trump. Does Mr. Trump need the support of people like President Bush, Senator Lindsey Graham, and others who say that they are not going to support his presidency, his candidacy, I should say?
I think he does. If you look at most polls that ask Republican voters, were these primaries divisive? Somewhere around 70 to 80% said that they were. They're very divisive. And that's unusual. You know, typically primaries that are that divisive reflect a divisive party in general. And so Trump really needs Republican office holders and former Republican office holders to get behind him and show Republican voters that Trump is an acceptable nominee to support. The fact of the matter is that in the general election with two equally mobilized sides, you need to be able to count on your entire party to back you. If Trump can only get 85% or 80% of Republicans to back him in a general election, then he can't win. It's a barrier too high to climb over. And so this is an early warning sign for the nascent Trump campaign for the White House that he needs to figure out a way to unify the Republican Party at large.
All right, let's bring Erin into this discussion. Erin, Trump said earlier today it's unlikely that John Kasich would be his Veep, but he said there's also a 40% chance that a former rival. I mean, there were 17 of the most qualified Republicans running for the presidency for the GOP nomination. He says that one of those guys could be his running mate. What are the odds that somebody like John Kasich would even consider it?
I don't think John Kasich is wanting to consider it. I think Donald Trump was right in what he said, that John Kasich just doesn't want it. People talk about John Kasich because he's the governor of Ohio. But really, the rival that it could be is Chris Christie. Chris Christie clearly wants it. He came out and endorsed Trump quickly, and he has been campaigning with Trump. I think that's the likeliest person that you will see. But Trump has also said that he wants a political insider, someone who has relationships on the Hill. Now, Chris Christie, of course, was the governor of New Jersey, so he hasn't been working on Capitol Hill, but he has been fundraising around the country for Republicans for the last 6 years or so. So he does have many of those relationships. So I think he is probably the guy. Now, to Jamelle's point about needing the endorsements from some big Republicans like former President Bush, both former Presidents Bush, I don't think that's true at all. I think we saw during the primary season that endorsements do not matter at all. And in fact, Jeb Bush got tons of endorsements, and he did very poorly in the primary. So I don't think your average voter is listening to some of these office holders. I think that is the point of this primary season, that they are not listening to the political establishment.
And Erin, you wrote an article about that. Jamelle, you also wrote an article yesterday, a really fascinating piece on a lot of people who are saying that Trump has the wind behind his back. But in one paragraph, you say the Democrats will hit Trump for his open and vicious misogyny. They'll publicize his history of racism and discrimination. They'll attack him where he's strong with stories of ordinary people he has scammed and defrauded. You say that it's going to be tough because he's disliked by women, Hispanic, and African-American voters. So is there any way for him to overcome that?
I mean, one of the things I think is sort of misleading people about the Republican primary and kind of causing them to generalize to this broader electorate is the fact that Trump has so handily defeated his rivals. But so much of that's a function of the particulars of the Republican primary electorate. It is largely white. It is largely conservative. It does not look like a general electorate. It is within a broader Republican political context in which sort of elites are disdained and expertise is disdained, which we've seen for the past 4 or 5 years. You know, Trump is not that different than candidates like Todd Akin or Sharon Angle or Christine O'Donnell, who won under similar circumstances in smaller primaries. And so once you broaden your scope from the Republican primary to a general election, what you're looking at are huge swaths of Americans, tens of millions of people who do not participate in Republican politics, hold deeply negative views of Donald Trump. There are not very many Americans, period, who don't have an opinion about Donald Trump. And so he's unpopular, these opinions are hardened, and these obstacles are higher than any nominee has ever faced in recent memory.